This video is sponsored by Established Titles. Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to yet another God of War news update video. It seems like the closer and closer we are getting to Ragnarok's release, the more and more important news that is dropping. With that said, today we've had some pretty early reviews discussing the first few hours of God of War Ragnarok, as it looks like a large number of game journalists and outlets have managed to get their hands on early review copies of the game to test and feel out. Now, with that being said, this video does kind of tether on spoilerish territory, discussing mechanically how it plays, as well as a few enemies we will be meeting in the first few hours. So, if you want to go in completely blind, I do not recommend watching this video. With that said, a large portion of this video will be based around the PlayStation blog article that I will be linking down in the description below, so you definitely want to check that out, and showing a variety of different photos that they have recently released that does tie into this article. With that said, if you like what we do here, if possible guys, I would super appreciate it if we could first get this video to about 1,000 likes. It's a small thing, but trust me when I say it goes a long way for both this video and this channel out as a whole. And if you like what we do here and wish to stay up to date with all things God of War related, please don't forget to subscribe and tick that bell. But before we do begin, here is a quick message from today's sponsor. Established Titles is a brand that pays homage to an old Scottish custom of gifting those with the title of Lord or Lady, like from ye olden times of the United Kingdom. Along with this, Established Titles is incredibly eco-friendly with how they conduct their business, working with other global charities like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to battle the global deforestation issue and restoring the biodiversity and picturesque woodlands landscape of Scotland. And for every purchase made, a tree will be planted globally. It's a wonderful gift you can give someone, as it purchases 1 square foot of land in Edelston, Scotland, that you can monitor with a unique plot number. And you also gain a crest of certification next to your name for the title. So, you can quite literally put Lord or Lady on credit cards, plane tickets, and even your dating profile, if you really want to flex on them. Established Titles is honestly such a great last minute gift to get someone who might be really fussy with not knowing what they could exactly want. And to cap this off, they have also told me that the first 200 people that purchase a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot, so you will be walking distance away. Depending on how many of you become lords or ladies, we can kind of build our own little lore kingdom. Plus, Established Titles is actually running an early Black Friday sale, so if you use this code HBTW, you can gain an additional 10% off. So please go to establishedtitles.com/HBTW and support the channel. Now, the PlayStation article covers a number of details, including that of visual fidelity, environmental design, and of course, performance. But for this video, I primarily want to focus on the importance of gameplay, as well as new enemy types, and how this kind of all fits into the main narrative. So if you wish to explore those finer details, I will again have the article linked in the description below if you are worried about the performance side of things. With that said, let's talk about combat. Settling back in. I'll admit, it took me until the back half of God of War 2018 until I felt proficient with the new combat mechanics. The intimate camera position, ranged and melee Leviathan axe, and abundant combat options overwhelmed me a bit. In contrast, picking up Kratos' axe and Blades of Chaos at the beginning of God of War Ragnarok filled me with confidence and a lust for battle. Wielding both weapons at the outset encouraged me to make more complete use of Kratos' arsenal, and it's a blast. Which honestly, I'm very glad that right out the gate, we have access to both weapons. So it fills me with confidence that legacy players will be able to jump in and kind of just pick up where they left off. Death from above. Kratos can now take a sprinting leap off a cliff and slam it into enemies below. A furious intro to any group fight that stuns enemies. The new combat options is a potential example of God of War Ragnarok's increased focus on verticality in the environment. Now this is something I'm very glad have implemented as a core mechanic since the 2018 game. Whilst I really like the grounded approach and being able to roll around, at times the gameplay could feel rather stiff, not being able to climb up to higher vantage points. So I'm glad that's being corrected now, and we're able to utilize the Leviathan axe and Blades of Chaos in very interesting ways as large AoE sweepers from high above. I'm just interested to see how the inbuilt frost and flame buffs will actually affect these AoE moves. And actually touching on that, stay frosty. The triangle button, used for equipping and recalling the Leviathan axe, can be pressed when held to apply a Frozen Awaken effect to your next melee or ranged attack. Pressing R1 during Frost Awaken executes Frozen Breach, a wide swing, and applies frost to nearby enemies. Aiming whilst pressing R1 during Frost Awakens executes Frozen Spike, a quick throw of the Leviathan axe that creates a frost explosion on impact. Kratos' expanded range of elemental attacks injects refreshing new options for each encounter. I will say, I really like this change to the Leviathan axe. It adds a little bit more utility to what the weapon already possesses. Along with this, I think we've actually seen quite a fair few of these in action, with both the Frost Breach and Frozen Spike abilities being shown off in the very first trailer. Flaming Blades of Chaos. Similar to the Leviathan Axe's Frozen Awaken, you can mash the triangle button with the Blades of Chaos, equipped to perform a Flame Whiplash. This charges Kratos' chained implements with fire, great for melting enemies' icy defenses. More importantly, Kratos looks undeniably cool, spinning the blade's chain to stoke the flames. So right away, it's great to see that the Blades of Chaos will be given the same treatment that the Leviathan axe is given. The only downside to this at the moment is that, unfortunately, we haven't really seen much of it in action. So fingers crossed, with more information coming out, we will learn more about it soon. Haldra Homestead. Kratos and Atreus visit Brock and Sindri's shop and home to gear up. Whilst there, upgraded my Leviathan axe to level 2, boosting damage significantly and unlocking a new tier of skill tree abilities. Atreus was also outfitted with new armor. My favorite detail is the inclusion of a chest containing lost loot, where the Haldra brothers store any resources that players may have accidentally left on the battlefield. So instantly, it looks like the RPG elements will be returning from the previous installment. As we do know, from early pre-orders, you did get different skins, but we didn't know if stats would be tied to them. It seems like all of that will be returning, along with new skill tree options that will slowly unlock as we play the game. Customizing gear. Once again, you can customize your weapons, armor, including slottable gems for Kratos' Leviathan axe. After a battle with a ferocious stalker named the Huntress, I acquired Winter's Bite, a light runic attack that forms a mass of ice around Kratos' axe for extra damage. Another applies a flaming uppercut style attack to the Blades of Chaos. I found both moves handy as quick get out of jail free cards when surrounded by enemies. Just mind that cooldown timer. Now there's already quite a bit to unpack from this paragraph. Now in early previews of the game, this enemy type was referred to as the Stalker for the longest time, but now referred to as the Huntress may loosely imply that the centaur-like enemy is a boss or a mini-boss of sorts, much like the trolls in the previous game. And of course, we do have the return of runic attacks. And it seems like after beating her, we get one for both the Leviathan axe as well as the Blades of Chaos. And they seem to complement each other's utility extremely well. Of course, we are yet to see this in motion, so we can only kind of assume for the time being. Shield of Choice. Kratos' Guardian Shield is damaged during battle, and Brock offers to craft an additional defense while he works on repairs. Players can pick from 2 new shields to start with. The Stone Wall Shield, specializing in soaking up attacks and striking back, and the Dauntless Shield, which is all about high risk, high reward parries. Eventually, players can scourge up enough resources to craft all shields. Now, much like the previous paragraph, this seems to be a fairly important one, as it sadly looks like we will be retiring the Guardian Shield for a portion of time. If I was willing to put my money on it, I would say that first interaction with Thor didn't go particularly too well. And for those who don't know, that shield is of great significance to Kratos, as it was something his wife Faye built for him on their first anniversary. So it is a shame that we will be putting it down for a while. With that said, it looks like we have some new toys to play with, coming in the form of the Stone Wall Shield and the Dauntless Shield. Now, these are all things I've actually touched on in a previous video, so I recommend checking that out if you wish to see me go into more detail there. But in short, the Stone Wall Shield is designed to soak up damage, to then produce a large full-screen AoE strike that launches the enemies into the air, and the Dauntless Shield is for those with a keen eye that are looking to parry the absolute hell out of any poor soul that comes their way. Dauntless Shield Test Drive. I opted for the Dauntless Shield, hoping that my experience mastering narrow parry windows in action games like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice may come in handy. A careful timed tap of L1 against an oncoming strike parries attacks and produces a flash of light, stunning foes for a generous amount of time. I found this immensely helpful for crowd management and relish the incentive to better study enemy attack patterns. Now, I will say going forward, this does get a little bit spoiler heavy, as it touches on a variety of different enemies in the first few hours of the game. Thor Throwdown. If you loved the bombastic boulder encounter at the start of God of War 2018, look forward to clashing axe and hammer with Thor in a similarly spectacular battle. Thor unleashes a combo of grabs, lightning-infused Mjolnir blasts, area of effect volleys, and more. The two gods grapple and fly through the air as the battle rages across multiple frozen landscapes. Thor's assault is non-stop, peppering in cutting insults against Kratos' parenting skills when he's not outright attacking. It's a memorable encounter that left me eager for a rematch against the God of Thunder. So obviously, it looks like we will be duking out with Thor much earlier than we had anticipated, probably mirroring our very first encounter with Boulder. And I would not expect any less, as this ties into what I said about the Guardian Shield. But either way, seems like a very strong start and tone setter for the beginning of the game. And with the phrase rematch in mind, I'm interested to see how this fight goes, because it doesn't look like Kratos wins this encounter. So, if that is the case, how do the two escape? Raider Rumble. Hardy, violent raiders wander the wild woods, attacking Kratos because they know he's responsible for bringing on Fimbulwinter. These melee and ranged foes are easy fodder for sharpening your melee skills and satisfying test dummies to boot. Now, this is actually really cool. Again, tying back to really the core elements of this game, of how actions have consequences. We never really thought how Fimbulwinter would affect the mortals of Midgard, because for the most part, it's overrun with Draugr. We only encounter humans once in the 2018 game. So I will say, I like how this is being incorporated to show that Kratos hasn't just brought on the end for that of Asgard, but he's put mortals in a position where they are kind of feral. So I like that Santa Monica has opted for going with human enemies here. Bjorn Battle. A mighty bear attacks in one of the first boss battles. This burly animal begins with predictable swipes for Kratos to parry, but also introducing additional cues, like yellow circles that indicate Kratos can block, but will still receive damage, and red circles indicating unblockable attacks. The bear's attack patterns is a ferocious yet forgivable on-ramp, hinting at tougher enemies to come. Again, much like what I said with the Raiders, it seems like Santa Monica are really trying to make this world feel more alive. Having it so, even the wildlife is against you here. Now, the bears here could very well be a homage to one of the tie-in comics, so I like that that idea may have carried across here, even if they aren't berserkers. Dreki Brawl. One of my favourite fights from this slice of the game pits our duo against the Dreki, a crocodile-like dragon beast. The quadrupedal creature snaps with its massive maws, swiping with its scaly tail and dishing out electrical attacks that force players to keep moving. Using the Dauntless Shield to parry a volley of attacks whilst dodging zaps feels natural and satisfying. A well-tuned fight that perfectly tests players' growing skill with tough but fair intensity. Now this is actually an enemy type I have been looking forward to for a very long time. The Dreki visually bears a lot of intimidating factors to him, because in Old Norse, Dreki translates to dragon too. With that said, I like that in design, the Dreki isn't entirely dependent on simply opening and closing its jaw. I like that it's utilizing its tail and its claws, which I suppose complements the aggressive visual design of the dragon. Bifrost damage. Near the very end of the preview session, a new bloodthirsty enemy type emerges to protect something deep in a dwarven mine. The pale tattooed Unhurrier unleashes fierce attacks that deal Bifrost damage to Kratos, represented by a purple section of his HP bar. Bifrost damage is harmless at first, but when these foes hit a second time, it detonates the infliction and slices a chunk off your HP. Watch your back, dodge readily, and be ready to parry to survive weaponized Bifrost. Now this is very interesting, because this basically introduces a completely new status type that we've never heard of before. It seems to function like white life bar health from Street Fighter 4, of you can soak up that damage and simply recover it over time, as the status effect probably fades away. But if you get hit whilst the Bifrost charge is still active, it sounds like you lose a giant chunk of health. So I'm interested to actually see how this works in motion, because this sounds like a very powerful status effect to be on the receiving end of. And honestly, it sounds like it's going to suck to deal with in large crowds of enemies. Also, quick note, the Unhurrier sounds like he's protecting where Tyr is imprisoned. So I believe this does confirm that he has been imprisoned away to the likes of Svartalfheim. Realm Lockdown. Odin has the realms cut off at the beginning of God of War Ragnarok, so Kratos is unable to use the Bifrost to travel. Thankfully, Brock and Sindri have reconfigured the Mystic Gateways as an alternate means of travel. Now this is very important and something that has not been mentioned before. Of course, in the 2018 game, the Bifrost played a huge role in us getting from point A to be. But it seems like now with Fimbulwinter here, the Allfather has attempted to cut off Kratos and Atreus to pin them down in Midgard. But seeing as Brock and Sindri have tweaked the gateways, we now have an entirely different new travel system, which does interest me, because is this a fast travel system that's exclusive between Midgard and Svartalfheim, or can we use it to travel from Midgard to any other realm? at least until the Bifrost is restored. But this is really important and really interesting, because it means fast travel will be that much more fluid. Wintering in Svartalfheim. While Fimbulwinter has enveloped Midgard in cold and snow, it's had different effects on other realms. In Svartalfheim, for example, subterranean pressure has increased, pocketing the land with powerful geysers. Mimir, the wise talking head, strapped to Kratos' belt, also mentions a potent odor has spread across the lands. Now this was noted quite early on in Game Informer's early preview, but I like that they're showing the effects of Fimbulwinter to different realms, and how it affects them during the course of Ragnarok. Puzzling platforming. Navigating the realms requires clever use of Kratos' implements. In one instance, I needed to move a pillar blocking the path. This required me to first toss the Leviathan axe to shatter a log, bracing the pillar down, then brandishing the blades of chaos to wrangle the pillar from the path. Another example involves crafty use of the Leviathan axe's elemental properties to manipulate watery obstacles in the realm of Svartalfheim, but I'll leave that to you to discover. I absolutely love this. Puzzling has always been an aspect of God of War, and I quite enjoyed the puzzle aspects of the 2018 game. But the thing is with that, it was very much so up in your face. It seems like here, we'll need to use some form of creative thinking to unravel puzzles by literally pulling apart the scenery we are around. So I do like how they're encouraging creative ingenuity to now solve puzzles. It's complementary of the team's well-made level design. Sonic arrows. In the dwarven town of Nidavellir, Sindri equips Atreus' bow with a new Sonic-powered string. This enhancement is attuned to blast apart objects, pulsing a light blue-green around the environment, like passages leading to new areas, and alcoves hiding chests filled with hacked silver. Atreus' ability to destroy this glowing material injects a deeper layer of joint material puzzle solving and navigation for the pair. So immediately, back to what we said about puzzle solving, it seems like us the player won't be the only one that is capable of pulling apart the environment to solve puzzles, exploration, and side quests. Fans who adore turning over every stone in the realm can rest assured that exploration is abundant and rewarded in this sequel. While venturing through a charming yet uninviting dwarven town, Kratos and Atreus cross paths with a dwarf who has history with Mimir. The dwarf mentions mining rigs that Mimir once championed have caused a mess in these lands. If the player chooses to pursue this favor, they can correct Mimir's past wrongs for a reward, while navigating a canoe across a vast, brilliant blue lake. I spot pillars of black smoke billowing from those mines. I choose to forge ahead on the main quest, but was assured when Atreus organically mentioned we could return to complete the favor later. Again, just another thing I love to hear. It fills me with an abundance of joy to know that that dwarven town feels alive, and most importantly, at least in some way, interactive with Kratos and Atreus. The world seems to be living and breathing, and the characters that occupy it seem to be self-aware enough that they can tell us, the player, that there's always the choice of completing or leaving this questline behind. Dwarven Compass. Sindri bestows a beautiful gift upon Kratos, a compass that allows players to track objectives on the map, then follow a compass at the top of the screen towards their destination, perfect for efficiently tracking objects like favors and other side quests. I don't think this is anything too new from the previous installment, but I like that this has been added. I think this is a pretty good way to get around for people that might not have the best sense of direction. Now, the final paragraph does say the following. The opening hours of God of War Ragnarok are jam-packed with exciting story modes and top-notch combat encounters. These are just a few moments and details from the outset that have made me so excited to dive deeper into combat, explore the realms, and learn what the fates have in store for our heroes. Not long to wait now. There's a considerable amount of stuff to unpack here, and honestly, it's just so crazy the amount of enemy variety and creativity that has been added in this game. One of my worries early on was how they would be able to build on this foundation, and whether or not it would be adding too many extra steps to a simple formula. But it's good to see and learn that the core gameplay hasn't been compromised, but instead has been expanded on. So I'm very thrilled about that, as well as the amount of enemy diversity we do have in this game. Whilst I like my Draugrs and I like my Hellwalkers, I will say the lack of enemy variety in the 2018 game was a bit lackluster for me, as a lot of enemy types did perform very similar to each other. But it seems like they've taken that criticism and just flipped it upside down, tossing at us a variety of different enemies. And with that being said, we are still yet to see what the other realms have in store for us in terms of enemy variety. Narratively, this game looks amazing, and I simply can't wait to get my hands on it. But with that said, what would you say you are most looking forward to that I've mentioned in this PlayStation article here? I'd love to hear what you have to say, because there's so much going on here, and I'm extremely excited to see what the future holds for Ragnarok. But for now, everyone, that has been it for me. So as always, ladies and gentlemen, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting, as Ragnarok is less than 3 weeks away. Take care, everyone. I'll see you soon.